Shalom everyone. Today we are celebrating Yom Yerushalayim. We're celebrating this special day not only because of the liberation of Yerushalayim in the 67 war, but also to remember our brave soldiers who have fallen in battle in the 67 war. Today we have a special and unique opportunity to show you a virtual tour of the Ammunition Hill with Alon Wald. Alon Wald is the operations manager at Ammunition Hill and is the son of Rami Wald, Zichrono Livracha, who have fallen in battle in the 67 war. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you, Alon. Bevakasha.
Hello to you all. It's quite a challenge for me. I'm surely not in my comfort zone. I'm going to try to squeeze 53 years of something really impressive that happened in Israel. I'm going to try to squeeze 53 years of my life and try to share with you from the other side of the globe a legacy of a nation that I believe you are all part of. It is going to be a challenge, but I'm very thankful that you are having me. It is thanks to the Corona and the Zoom opportunities of the internet, I'll be able to do it. We are stuck in our homes for about 2 months now, gradually being released to our working places. This is the best way I can share the story. So please have a look of some very special display I prepared for you. I'm honored. So let's carry on with the mission. Indeed, my name is Alon Wald. I'm working at Ammunition Hill. Ammunition Hill is a very impressive place. Maybe some of you visited it in the past. Just a minute, I'll put the screen on. I believe you can see it now. I'm talking about the 6-Day War. 6-Day War is a very well-known war in Israel. We conducted about 6 of them the past 72 years of our existence. A 6-Day War really shifted something and created something that people tend to think of something like a miracle until today. 1967, I was 10 months when President Nasser, the mighty president of the Egyptian nation, you can see on the map on the left side, Egypt lies on the left side, south side of Israel, gave a vow, a threat all over the media that he is going to lead all the Arab armies and demolish the Jewish entity, finish whatever Hitler could not do, kill us Jews, throw us to the sea. And indeed, the Jordan nation collaborated with him in the east and the Syrian nation in the north. And for 2 weeks, entire Israel nation was facing something like a second Holocaust is going to fall on our heads. People were terrified in the streets. People literally felt they're going to be eliminated within a couple of days when all the Arab armies are going to fall on our heads. You see the map of Israel in 1967. It was a very long nation. Judea and Samaria was stuck in the middle, and Jerusalem over here. You can see this is the famous corridor to Jerusalem. Ever since the independence war, 1948, Jerusalem was divided. You can see it on the right screen to 2 cities. This is Jerusalem, and Jerusalem, as a status quo, was divided 8.5 kilometers from side to side to an Israeli side right on the end of this corridor and to the Jordanian side. This was the status quo nobody wanted to play with. In the north side of Jerusalem lies Ammunition Hill. Ammunition Hill is a ridge that blocks Jerusalem from the north side. The Jordanians kept a stronghold over there, and in this stronghold, they held the elite commander units of the Bedouin tribe who are loyal to King Hussein. They were very well-trained, brave soldiers, and whoever controlled Ammunition Hill could block anybody who wants to come to penetrate Jerusalem. Whoever controlled Ammunition Hill could control their way to Ramallah, to Jericho, to Jaffa, and to the old city of Jerusalem. The paratroopers did not know who kept this place, but when the war started, the paratroopers were among 3 brigades of reservists, and I'm going to talk about them in a little while. But Ammunition Hill today stands for the liberation of Jerusalem, because in this place, the paratroopers conducted or faced one of the toughest battles the paratroopers ever faced during so many wars and campaigns of Israel during the 70 years of our existence. It was a very tough battle. It lasted 4.5 hours during the dead of night of 5th of June, 1967. They were all reservists 2 weeks before. Now they are our brave soldiers. What they did there is something I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to try to make you understand what we are doing with this battle today. Because of the victory of this battle, the government of Israel made a decision. If this is what the paratroopers are doing, maybe we can seize the moment and reunite Jerusalem, return to the Holy Mountain, the Jewish Quarter, and the Kotel, the West Wall. It happened 2 days after this battle. But nowadays, the heritage site, I'm very honored to tell you that I'm working for, is standing for something much, much higher than the battle itself, and I'm going to try to share it with you. Until today, we have there about 300 meters of trenches, 40 bunkers intact, exactly as we found them after the war ended. People are now running in the trenches, trying to understand what happened there 53 years ago. And indeed, I'm going to share some of the stories. But before I'm going to do that, I prepared specially for you about 9 or 10 minutes clip that will enable you to be there for a couple of minutes, to try to understand what we are standing for. And please have a look from the other side of the globe, try to understand, use your imagination. Dead of night, 53 years ago, people fought there from two sides, the best from the both sides. And after this clip, I'll carry on and try to reach the most intimate resolution of the story of my family, my father and myself. Enjoy.
Hello to everybody. My name is Alon Wald. I'm speaking to you from the top of Ammunition Hill that lies 1,000 meters from the old city of Jerusalem to the north in Jerusalem in Israel. Thanks to the Corona ordeal, this is the best way I can bring Jerusalem to your best understanding, to your hearts, to make a bond, to make a link, to make you understand what happened in Jerusalem about 53 years ago. We are going to celebrate the reunification of Jerusalem in a very peculiar, weird, different way this year because of the Corona. And we'll try to do it thanks to the Zoom and the internet in the most vivid and interesting way. Ammunition Hill. It commemorates one of the toughest, most difficult battles the paratroopers of the IDF ever conducted the past 72 years of our existence. And you need to understand that the story I'm going to reveal to you, that will start with a broader perspective and it will result eventually at the story of my family, of my own dear father who fell here 53 years ago, is really a very, very interesting story. And today, I'm not going to talk to you about sacrifice and about death and about the battlefield whereabout of Ammunition Hill. I'm going to talk to you about values, about the widest common denominator that we share from the both sides of the globe. 53 years ago, something happened, a 6-day war. It is a very famous war and we keep on talking about it. You need to understand that we are talking about something that not even one nation in the modern era could achieve. Within 6 days, Israel nation collided against 4 Arab armies and against all odds came out victorious. In this hill, the paratroopers made the pivotal battle that led the entire nation to reunite with the Holy Mountain, with the Western Wall, with the Jewish quarters. And I'm going to share some of the stories with you. When you come to Israel, you can see the IDF soldiers all over the streets of Israel wearing uniforms. They are indeed one of the best armies in the world, but they are not enough to collide against 4 Arab armies. Whenever a full-scale war falls on our heads, we need to summon the reservists. 80% of the fighting units are the reservists. Who are they? Carpenters, grocery shop owners, lecturers, fresh grooms, rabbis, students who have to make time and again when the army needs them, when the nation needs them, this shifting their mind. When this knock on the door is coming, we need you for the greater good, these guys have to go and leave their families, their careers, their wives, their newborn sons. One of them was my father, Captain Rami Wald, the late Captain Rami Wald. He was a carpenter. He was 32 years old. And I'm going to talk to you today about a lifetime of me trying to understand the minute my father had to leave me. I asked myself, where did he bring all these values? Camaraderie, commitment to a mission, loyalty, creativity, brotherhood. Does it come with the ranks? Does it come with the uniforms? Until today, we have here 300 meters of trenches and 40 bunkers, well preserved, intact, exactly as they were 53 years ago, when 120 paratroopers stormed to this hill against 120 Jordanian soldiers from the elite commander units of King Hussein. Israel nation was now facing three fronts: Golan Heights against the Syrians, Sinai Peninsula against the Egyptians, and the long border against the Jordanians, when the peak of the efforts was Jerusalem. The paratroopers had no intelligence, no maps. They did not know that the people that are waiting for them are that experienced. They knew these trenches like the palm of their hands. Nevertheless, 4.5 hours, 5th of June 1967, they came out victorious against all odds. You guys, this is my childhood playground. I was running here in the trenches at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8 without understanding. What does the notion of the words like war, Jerusalem, Zionism, death, the notion of the word father? I lost my own dear father over here. I did not know my father. I was 10 months when he had to leave me and my mother. Any war, any big war, any triumph eventually is being done, achieved by the person, by the human being. And I can tell you that the liberators of Jerusalem we are going to relate to today were not gods upon earth. They were afraid, they made mistakes. They implemented amazing values that we stand for today. The best way to commemorate their deeds is to talk about camaraderie and bravery and leadership of human beings, not of soldiers, because we are a Jewish nation. We worship life and peace and not death and sacrifice. And this is the way we mediate the story today here. I can tell you for hours, each meter, who jumped on the hand grenade, who lost his life and how. It is important, but for this conversation, before the liberation of Jerusalem that we are going to celebrate in a very short while, the importance is to understand the heart of our nation, and this is going to be my focus today. And now I'm going to try to connect the dots. And I'm going to do it through the underground layer of Ammunition Hill. Underneath the trenches and the bunkers, we have the underground bunker of the Jordanians. Now, thanks to the JNF efforts, we have a very beautiful, impressive, state-of-the-art modern museum that will help me to tell you the story in the most vivid and creative way. If you are interested, please follow me. Some people say this is the safest place in Jerusalem. We are isolated completely from what's happening outside, and it helps us to bring the visitors to the most intimate resolution to understand what happened in Jerusalem 53 years ago. We are using animations and movies and clips. We are using music. This is by no means replacing the option for you to come in the future to understand what we are doing here. But to make a long journey of 400 meters and 53 years short, we should focus today on one story that starts the museum and ends the museum. The friends of my father, his comrades in arms, 2.5 days after the war started, reached the Kotel, the Holy Mountain, and the Jewish quarters. And one of the captains carried a flag in his rear pouch. The flag was given to him by a grandmother. She said to him, "If you will reach the Holy Mountain and the Kotel, please, this is the flag I preserved all these years for you. Please take it with you." We are now at the more or less at the end of the museum. It was a short version and nothing, as I told you, can replace of actual being here. But we started with the flag. 3 brigades collided against Jerusalem, a city and outskirts. And 2 days after my father was already killed, they reached the Kotel. And this soldier we met at the beginning took the pouch from his rear pouch, the flag, and along with 7 of his friends, created something we should relate to and never forget. They hanged the flag over the Kotel in a reunited Jerusalem. And when he heard that we are building this museum, he came to us and he told us, "This is the flag. This is the flag I preserved for so many years. This is the flag this old grandmother gave me when we started the war. It will be dead with me. Please, I'm 80 years old nowadays. Take the flag and put it in a safe position when people will be able to see the Israeli flag, the widest common denominator, symbol of our nation, is here with the handwriting of this guy, Yoram Zamush, who wrote with his own pen, "We are the paratroopers. The liberators of Jerusalem are now hanging the flag of the Kotel." This is history, and we carry on the journey. This Jerusalem garden is actually Harry Trigobov garden, and this is a tribute of JNF Australia to the ongoing efforts. Please have a look. As you surely understand, Ammunition Hill is no longer only trenches and bunkers. It's not only a story of death and sacrifice and battlefield whereabout. It is something much wider. Here you can see one of the latest built memorial halls in Israel on the national level. This is once again the sum up of all the questions I, myself, and my brothers and sisters forever, the orphans of Ammunition Hill and the Six-Day War, raised all our lives. Who were they? Who was my father as a human being? 3 years of gathering artifacts, memories, stories from the families themselves. What you see here are the choosing of the families. Here we relate to the way these guys lived and not to the way they died and fell. We wanted to know and to reveal from the families who were they, where did they come from, how did they live, and what is the full extent of their legacy.
This was the best I could do from the other side of the globe. Surely nothing will replace the opportunity to share this with you at our turf at Ammunition Hill. So let's carry on with the story. Indeed, I am a 53-year-old guy, a mensch. I'm going to throw amazing words to the air. I'm going to talk to you about camaraderie, about bravery, commitment to a mission, loyalty, Israel, Har HaBayit. These words meant nothing to me. When I was a little child, when I was 10 months, my father was taken away from me. And the story I'm going to reveal to you now, it's a story. It's not a lecture. I'm not going to teach you history. There's time for everything. And now I'm going to focus on the story of one family. Just a minute. Let's upload it and get to the point. As I told you before, I'm talking about a 6-day war. And when a full-scale war falls on the heads of the Israelis, every time and again, the majority of the fighting units are not the enlisted guys you see all over the streets of Israel, the IDF. The majority of the fighting units, 80%, as I told in the movie, are the reservists. And the story of the liberation of Jerusalem is the story of 3 brigades of civilians that have to leave their families. And in this story, I'm going to share with you the story of my father. You saw him before. He was very proud having a newborn son, but he was also a part of being a father and the love of the life of my mother and a carpenter and a civilian and a family member. He was the combat engineer specialist of the paratroopers. He was skilled and trained and experienced to penetrate into strongholds, to explode minefields. This was his specialty. And 2 weeks before the war started, the Israel nation summoned all the reservists, and they were ready to launch a preemptive strike against the Egyptians. And one of them was my father, and this is him before the war. And when the war was supposed to start, an Israel nation, a young, stubborn, brave nation, decided not to wait that the Egyptians will come leading all the Arab armies. They decided to launch a preemptive strike. And for the first time ever, our aviators teached a lesson, and 200 of our aviators flew very low towards Sinai Peninsula to the south, toward Egypt, and demolished about 300 airplanes on the ground. This was the start of the war, and within a couple of hours, we were colliding against 3 fronts, 3 Arab armies. My father, being a captain, he knew in advance that these guys are going to be summoned to Jerusalem and they are going to go to war. It was a secret, but he could not do anything but come to my grandfather and grandmother's apartment and say goodbye. What you see here is the last photo of me and my father. My mother said to me, we were terrified as long as as like all the other neighbors, that the war is going to start and we are going to be killed. All our fathers and uncles were away in preparations. And suddenly, out of nowhere, your father knocked on the door and entered along with two of his soldiers. He could not go to war without saying goodbye. And he took you in his arms, my mother said, sniffed you very deeply, like he loved to sniff your hair. And he went to your grandfather. And my grandfather says to me, your father was very emotional. He walked towards me, gave you to me, and said to me in these words, God, my son. I saw in his eyes that he's trying to say something to me. It was a secret. He couldn't say anything. But nevertheless, he gave you to me. And as fast as they popped up and came, they went away without giving any explanation. And this last farewell of my father teaches me an amazing lesson. It teaches me that our soldiers are not machines of war, they are human beings. He wanted to sniff my head, he wanted to say goodbye. We are part in small Israel of one big story. And I will never know if my father thought about me when he went to war, if I was an asset on his shoulder, if I was a burden, I did not know for sure. But he's part of who we are. And they went to war, and they created something that we tend to think is a miracle. Within 6 days, we tripled the size of Israel. We changed the Middle East the way we know it today. We came out victorious, and we liberated Jerusalem, who was kept for 19 years on the other side. When the war ended, try to use your imagination. Tens of thousands of Jewish people were marveling the reunification of Jerusalem. They were all celebrating in front of the Kotel. Jewish from all over the Jewish diaspora were marveling the reunification of Jerusalem, dancing, chanting, praying, crying. It was something unbelievable. The paratroopers were on the peak of the celebrations. But what they did at the end of the war is something I really need to share with you. They decided to leave the celebrations because they understood that during these celebrations, the nation, the Ministry of Defense, the army, cannot deal now with 182 bereaved families left behind. 182 fallen soldiers gave with their blood this achievement. And now, their friends, their comrades in arms, the friends of my father, decided they cannot wait for the celebrations to end. They need to reach the families immediately. Now, this decision is something that had to do with values. And these guys, you can see they are today about 80, 83 years old. I know them, I know their legacy, I know what they did in the war, but I surely know what they did after the war. 10 of these guys met spontaneously at the apartment of Dr. Brigade, the admired doctor of the brigade who saved lives with his medics and doctors a couple of days before. They couldn't wait for the nation. And these guys, now civilians once again, knocked on the door 2 days after of my mother's and father's home. My father was not dead, he was killed for 4 days already. They entered inside. My mother was in a state of shock. She saw the friends of my father. You know, these brigades were an amazing big families. They knew each other. From the kibbutzes, the fathers knew each other, the wife knew each other. She knew each and every one of them. They pointed at me, a 10-month baby, saying to me to my mother in these words, maybe Alonchik, this is my nickname, lost a father, but here 10 alternative fathers, friends, uncles, you name it. He will never step alone anymore. Now, these words, this vow, this promise resonated in dozens of other apartments all over Israel. These guys did something remarkable. They implemented the same values that led them to be victorious against all odds in the trenches, in the borders, in the fronts: camaraderie, bravery, commitment to a mission, loyalty, creativity. All these values were implemented while they decided spontaneously to approach my mother, showing us again and again and again that all these amazing values do not belong only to wartime, they do not belong only to my mother, they do not, or my father, or these guys. They belong to you, they belong to each and every human being who can be inspired from this story. Now you need to understand that I was raised on the laps of this amazing bunch of idol figures who never left me alone. when I was 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, when I had to bring somebody to speak about his career on behalf of a father. In elementary school, you need to bring every now and then your parents to talk about their career. I had none. But every year I could bring somebody amazing, because these guys kept on implementing those values and kept on supporting Israel. Some of them, you can see them here, are high-ranking officers. Some of them were parliament members. And from them, me and my generation, me and my brothers and sisters forever, the orphans of Ammunition Hill, collected the puzzle of how much my father looked like. Small gestures, mimics, values. I imitated them. They were as close to a father figure I could possibly imagine to myself. I wanted to know him because he stood for something remarkable, for a miracle. This combat was something I wanted to know. I wanted to know the path that led my father to his death, but I wanted to know who he was as a father, as a human being, and they were the best mediators I could possibly imagine to myself. And they never left us alone. And I'm talking about at the cemetery, the grave of my father. Every year they kept on coming. I'm talking about bar mitzvahs, I'm talking about holidays, I'm talking about birthdays, I'm talking about going to the army. Somebody led me to be recruited. I'm talking about getting married. Somebody was there for me. Whenever I needed them, I was puzzled, I needed some support or inspiration, they were there for me. And we owe them as kids, as a nation, so much. And talking about values, talking about bravery, I want to talk to you about another layer of the story. Because you see here, this is my mother and this is my father. My mother is alive until today. She is the rock of my life. I adore her. I really love her. But I did not know that I, being a young guy who was led to fulfill his destiny, I had to lure my mother into this story. Our mothers are very humble. They are behind the scenes all these years. But as I told you, the nation needs us civilians. The nation needs us youngsters, because most of us go to the army. And when the army knocked on my door many, many years ago, when I was 17, asking me, army is behind the corner, 18 behind is behind the corner, what do you want to do? Well, I wanted to be a paratrooper, some sort of a legacy, some sort of a bunch of fathers, uncles who raised me. I wanted to be associated. I wanted to know this legacy and to sweat like my father did. I wanted to wear the same red boots and the uniforms of the paratroopers. It is my time. I want to be like these guys. Now, in order to understand what we are standing for in the heart of our nation, you need to understand that the Israel nation protects the bereaved families. And whenever an orphan of a war wants to go to the army, he cannot go by law to a combat fighting unit. You can service your nation in any other possible position. You can be in intelligence, medics, computers, but not in a combat unit, by law. If somebody from first relation died in combat, his successor, it could be younger brother or like myself, a son, cannot go to a combat unit. Only if, the only possibility I could implement is if my legal guardian would sign a cruel waiver to the nation stating I'm his legal guardian of this stubborn guy who wants to become a fighter. It's on me, I'm signing a waiver, take my son. At the age of 17, I had to approach my mother because 99% of the times of the situations I'm talking about, our legal guardians are our humble, sweet mothers. And at the age of 17, I did not even know remotely what I'm going to load on the shoulders of my mother. I came to my mother, pleading her, Mommy, please, there's an option for me to become whoever I want to be. Please sign this waiver. And by doing so, I dragged my mother into the bigger story. Because you need to understand that a mother that looks into her son's eyes, saying to him in such a situation, I'm going to sign the waiver, she becomes this instant as brave as each and every one of the guys I just showed you. But a mother that looks into her son's eyes, saying to him, hate me, do not speak to me, I do not care, you'll be alive, I do not sign the waiver. She is as brave And in Israel, we do not judge a mother that said yes. We do not judge a mother that said no. It's all the same. You need to understand that the legacy, the story I'm sharing with you now, students from the other side of the globe, you are part of this story, is not a legacy of Spartan nation. Read history. Google the name Spartan. They raised their sons and kids to become martyrs, to kill themselves. They worship death and sacrifice and war. The Israel nation worship peace and life. And this is the situation, and these are the circumstances. And a mother that says yes, and a mother that said no, it's all the same. One of my brothers who came to his mother at the age of 17 and said to her, "Mommy, I do not want to go to the army. We paid the price. It's okay." Every decision they make is okay because as a nation, we protect the bereaved families. My mother looked into my eyes and said to me, "Alonchik, if this is what you want to do, I'm going to sign the waiver." And indeed, as Igal said at the beginning, she sent me to an amazing lifetime of serving my nation. And if you think that I'm trying to persuade any one of you to go to the army to fight on behalf of your nation, of our nation, Israel, Australia, forget it. You can be useful to your nation by doing so many things, up to your limits, to your desires. You can go now to a modern army and press one little button on a computer and be more useful to your nation than 3 platoon commanding officers. My mother, she couldn't sleep very well the first 5 years. And nowadays, now I can tell you that only now I know what she had to face because of her stubborn young boy who wants to be a mensch, wants to be like his fathers. And now to connect the dots to one humble, small postcard. Remember I told you that my father said goodbye before he had to go to war. One of his soldiers who came with him said to me something I revealed only at the age of 40. My father was very, very emotional. My father went back to the Jeep on the way back to the army. He took from his pocket a very special standard postcard of the IDF, 5th of June, 1967. This guy said to me, "Your father had to do something more." And he wrote a postcard. You can see the translation here. "To my sweet and kind son and my love. Hello and many kisses. It seems to be that it is coming. It couldn't have been helped and we must fight. I came over yesterday but couldn't say anything. Alone, be a man and take care of your mom, grandpa and grandma. May Allah be a fighter and take good care of everything and everyone until we shall return, and we shall return fast. See you soon. Lots of kisses, Rami." This postcard was delivered soon after they came to the preparation zone. And this postcard arrived to our family 4 days after my father was killed. My uncle saw this. He saw that my mother was very emotional. He understood that I was a 10-month baby. He couldn't show this to my mother. Only at the age of 40, when my fathers brought me back to Ammunition Hill, saying to me in this truthful way that led me all my life, "Alonchik, you and generation heard everything, all the stories. Please, we are 80 years old. Tomorrow we are not here. Come to Ammunition Hill and become our voice." And this is some sort of a request from some sort of a father or fathers you cannot say no to. And we stepped in 13 years ago and we became the torch carriers, the legacy mediators of this generation. It is my honor to do so. But 13 years ago, when we received, thanks to JNF efforts, a budget to make commemoration movies of all the fallen soldiers, I had an excuse to approach once again my uncles, saying to them, "Do you still have anything left for my father that I can add to this movie?" And my uncle came, went to his storage and came back with a box and said to me, "Where were you all your life? I forgot about it. This is your father's belongings." And at the age of 40, I opened this box and I saw his wings, the landing paratrooper's wings, and I saw his passport, and I saw letters he wrote, and I saw some postcards. And one of them was addressed to me. And at the age of 40, try to imagine me reading this postcard. I was crying like I never cried before. I was very emotional. This is the last wish, will, farewell for my father. Indeed, I kept the promise I was supposed to keep, to take care of my mother. Once again, it shows you that these guys were emotional. They were human beings. This is part of what they did, what they needed to do to become whoever they could be for their nation. And this is a camouflage of my absent yet so present father who led me all my life through my decision making. He's part of who I am today. And this is more or less the end of the story. Surely nothing replaces you coming over to Israel, to Jerusalem, to hear the stories, to understand firsthand what we are. And at the end, I'm going to tell you once again, you are away in Australia, but you are part of my soul, part of my family, part of my nation. Do not ever forget that we are one people, one nation. And be proud of being Jewish people, be proud of carrying this legacy with you. Google a little bit, read some books. This belongs to you because tomorrow morning, you, each and every one of you, can be brave at the college, at the youth movement, working places. You can inspire people. You can be the best friends because you are what you are, human beings. And if you have an option to go back to your homes now and hug your mother or father, saying to them, Daddy, I love you, Mother, I love you, do it. All my life, I wanted to hug my father. So on behalf of me, do it yourself, seize the moment. Thank you for listening to me, and let's rejoice and be happy for the liberation of Jerusalem together.